the Republican Party is basically infiltrated with these extremists. And, Ingracia goes down. But what about Kash Patel and his QAnon link? Right? What about Russell Vought's Christian nationalism?
Or 2025, and people said, Waj, you're crazy. It's like the world's worst I told you so tour. I get no joy from this because everything that I was tracking is coming to fruition, but you're the one who's been tracking it, folks. You joined me in conversation with Heidi Beirich. Heidi Beirich is the co-founder and director of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. She also used to be at Southern Poverty Law Center doing fantastic work, masochistic work, literally following up on the worst people on earth, the trends of hate and extremism, trying to warn people, like trying to be the Paul Revere. Hey, we have a problem with online radicalization. Hey, I think white supremacy is much more mainstream than you realize. Hey, maybe pay attention to these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that are linking up with, anti-immigrant themes. And people are like, oh, you Heidi, we had Obama. He's a black. And now we're in a post-racial America. And Heidi is like, no, folks, the kids are not all right. And I've been trying to talk to Heidi. This is the second time she's been on. But folks, this is sad news, is that Heidi is so busy. I've literally been harassing her for a month because every week I've been trying to bring her on. There was a mass shooter in Minnesota, Robin Westman, a hodgepodge of ideologies, right? Just like Luigi Mangione, a hodgepodge of ideology. Then there was Tyler Robinson. You can't categorize him. Then there was this guy, Joshua Johns, who shot at ICE detainees. And again, hodgepodge of mix and match of ideas. A lot of these folks all of them I mentioned were online, young, white men, video games. There's little trends there. And then you're seeing in the past 2 weeks, just a lot of Nazis being mainstream, just a lot of love for Nazis, just openly. Oh, ICE, just straight up tweeting Heidi, remigrate. No one cares about it. I do. I know you do. White nationalist iconography being tweeted out by ICE and DHS. Young Republicans in their 30s just openly promoting stuff like 1488. And people are like, what's that? So you know what that is. So the framing of today is the mainstreaming of Nazis and the radicalization of young people online, and how that is impacting not just our national security, folks, but straight up mainstream politics. This is where we are in the year 2025. Heidi, I gave you a lot just to set up, but you start where you want, and we'll go back and forth.
Well, I think I'll start with the Nazis. That past couple of weeks with that disclosure of those young Republican chat, and then Paul Ingracia's nomination for the Office of Special Counsel imploding after he had some pro-Nazi comments, shows that it's one thing when it's radicals on the fringes, but we can't talk that way anymore. We really haven't been able to talk that way in some time, but people just didn't get it. The Republican Party is basically infiltrated with these extremists. And, Ingracia goes down. But what about Kash Patel and his QAnon link? Right? What about Russell Vought's Christian nationalism? This is really, really serious.
Wait, Heidi, 1 second. People have noticed your voice is a bit muffled.
Oh, it's muffled? Well, let me take
it sounded like your mic was covered a bit. Okay, now I can't hear you, but don't worry, we'll wait.
You can hear me?
That's better. I think that's much better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's much better, much better.
Okay. I'm just saying that the numbers of people in the Republican Party at this point that have extremist connections is so deep that you can't even, I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's actually insane. And there doesn't seem to be really much policy in terms of the party, policing its own. It's actually surprising to me that Ingracia didn't get the nomination for the Office of Special Counsel, and he's of course still employed by the Trump administration. So that's where we're at when it comes to national politics.
Yeah, I mean, with Ingracia, folks, for those who haven't been following, he's a guy who, even before the text of just a couple of days ago revealed that he has a Nazi streak, his words, not mine, already deeply troubling candidate, friggin' pro-insurrectionist, pro-conspiracy theorist, racist, and the fact that Republicans were perfectly fine just, saying, yeah, who cares? But then, saying I have a Nazi streak is still a bridge a little bit too far. So the one good news, Heidi, and this is, of course, dark humor, is that being openly Nazi is just like, okay, you can't be openly Nazi. Just be like DL Nazi, not openly Nazi.
Well, let's not forget there's an anti-Semite working as a spokesperson over at the Department of State right now. We've got Darren Beatty, unbelievably, is the interim head of the U.S. Institute for Peace, and he went to a white nationalist conference and got fired out of the first Trump administration. So these people are still littered all over the place. Yeah, maybe Hitler is a step too far, but my God, how have we got to a place where that's where you get finally cut off? It's great.
And you've been tracking this. I've been tracking this. People say we have Trump derangement syndrome. I use the R word racist. You use the R word. We use the W word white nationalist. And they're like, no, no, no. They just have economic anxiety. And it infuriates me. I'm sure it's infuriated you, Heidi. I felt like bashing my head against the wall. But I'm like, this is America infantilizing and coddling white supremacy. And then you saw that happen in real time where, gosh, has it been almost a week and a half, where Politico revealed the Telegram messages, 2,900 pages worth of young Republicans, men and women in their 30s and late 20s, just openly. I mean, well, your take on that when you read those texts?
My take on that was we shouldn't be surprised. I wish that the stuff had been disclosed earlier. My God, I wish I'd gotten my hands on those Telegram chats. But there was nothing in there that surprised me. We know this has been going on. It's amazing that the public doesn't realize that. That's what I'm confused about. Voters not seeing how extreme this party is, how many blatant racist, anti everything basically are in the party. And, at least they shut down the New York chapter of this, but they really need to shut down the whole damn thing. It's incredible. But I mean, what do you think when your president runs around talking about immigrants as racists, opens an office of remigration in the State Department, hires people like Patel and other extremists? What do you think is going on in the ranks? I mean, look at Stephen Miller. That guy's got a track record of racism and association with white nationalists that has been extensively documented going back years. And he sits probably in the most powerful position in the White House right now. So we shouldn't be surprised that they're running around saying racist things.
I'm so glad you went to Stephen Miller because on the left hook, I've tried my best to. I said people need to understand the ideology of the shadow presidents, and the two shadow presidents are Stephen Miller and Russell Watt. And Stephen Miller is the architect behind this crackdown on immigrants and crime, right? And this man has been committed, folks. He's a through and through white nationalist. I mean, he is a soldier for the war. That's how he views himself from ninth grade on, right? This is a man who literally went to the White House to effectuate this vision. He worked with Jeff Sessions. He worked with these far right racist anti-immigrant groups, right? He worked with David Horowitz to go after Muslims. This is a person who fed Breitbart white nationalist memes and conspiracies in the first Trump administration. This is the man who, with along with Steve Bannon, has promoted the book Camp of the Saints as a warning. That's a white national. Can you tell people what Camp of the Saints is? And the fact that I can't believe we're actually saying that this is a mainstream book that Stephen Miller promotes.
It's also Bannon's favorite book. Let's not give him a pass. So Camp of the Saints used to be something you could only buy off of neo-Nazi websites, right? That's where they peddled this particular novel. Look, this book is so racist, it's unbelievable. It depicts South Asian immigrants invading France and raping, pillaging, killing their way through the countryside. I mean, it is like incredibly graphic. Everyone who is an immigrant is a murderer or rapist, and they're killing the poor white people of France as they take over the country. That's the plot. That's what it's about. And how that becomes your favorite book is, I mean, it tells you everything you need to know about people like Miller, like Bannon, right? If that's your favorite book. I'll tell you who else used to like that book. William Pierce, the head of the Neo-Nazi National Alliance. They sold it. William Pierce, whose group, neo-Nazi group, was responsible for murders, crimes. These are the kinds of people who like a book like Camp of the Saints.
Yeah, and Camp of the Saints, folks, as Heidi was saying, for white nationalists, modern white nationalists, they see the two nonfiction, fictional books that are like the pillars of their movement are Camp of the Saint and Turner Diaries. Turner Diaries was the one that was radicalized, or helped radicalize Timothy McVeigh. The biggest before 9/11, the largest, most violent terrorist attack on U.S. soil, Oklahoma City. And then Camp of the Saints is the other book recently that white nationalists and neo-Nazis love. And that's the book that Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon have openly promoted to reporters. Openly, folks, saying, hey, 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 this is what immigration does. Read these fictional narratives written by white nationalists. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, my God, this country keeps infantilizing this. The reason why I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. Here we go after, we've seen just a huge increase in the past week, Heidi. I don't know if you've seen on Islamophobia. Me and my Muslim friends are like, holy shit, we haven't witnessed this for like 23 years. That's okay. You're right. Like, did you see Cuomo, what he posted yesterday, the AI video?
I just am feeling like post 9/11, with the attacks on Muslims. It is insane. And with the New York mayoral race, it's gross. It really is gross.
Yeah, but like that's okay. We can get away with that. And at the same time, we just infantilize all of the stuff that you and I just mentioned as locker room talk, economic anxiety, is Trump racist? What the corporate media has done, what the establishment has done, even now, 2025, almost 2026, with everything we just mentioned. And that's just a snapshot, folks. If me and Heidi keep going, we'll have another hour of evidence that we can just roll off. The utter failure to identify this for what it is, Heidi. Can you tell us why that? And let me put it this way: why is it important to name this for what it is?
Because white nationalism, white supremacy is one of the most dangerous ideologies of all time. It's directly connected to violence, genocide, ethnic cleansing. This is the stuff that is in the back of the minds of people like Stephen Miller. When you say remigration, you mentioned this before. Remigration is an idea that comes from an Austrian former neo-Nazi white supremacist to forcibly remove non-white people from countries. That's ethnic cleansing. That's a war crime. This is the stuff that's coming down the pipe. If you don't pay attention to this, you don't take this seriously. Is this the kind of country you want to live in, where racists and people who push ideas of ethnic cleansing are in charge? Look at what's happening with immigration. People just snatched off the streets. People disappeared. Doesn't matter, citizen, undocumented. We have the largest now. I think DHS's budget is like larger than all but maybe 10.
It's this. If ICE was a country, it would have the 16th largest military budget.
Okay, there we go. Think about that for a minute. We've got troops on the streets in multiple places. This is the result of allowing white nationalists to get into government, to fester, to not take them seriously. And I have to say, the New York Times wrote a story yesterday or the day before around the Ingrassia scandal that supposedly was about how many extremists are in the government. And they mentioned maybe 3 or 4. And I thought to myself, that list would be 50 people. Like, they're failing to point out how serious this is.
That's exactly it, because they normalize it, they coddle it, they give it excuses, they give it euphemisms like, oh, it's economic anxiety, oh, it's cultural anxiety. I'm using the stuff from the first Trump term. He had a racial flare-up, he had a racial trip-up, because if they actually mentioned it, this is my take on this idea as a person of color, if this country was actually willing to confront it, they would see such a rot. They would see such a rot that it would overwhelm them. They'd be like, oh my God, this is everywhere. This is pervasive. This is our institutions, in our languages. This is in our families, in our barbecues. We have to call out our uncles and our aunts. Oh my God, the racist is in bed with me. And so instead what we do is, it's too much. No, let's not talk about it. Let's just sweep it under the rug, right? And I was having a conversation with someone, I don't want to name, because yesterday I was in New York in a conference, and we were just talking about this. Like, how is this country still incapable of confronting this very real threat? Folks, in the Telegram messages, the 2,900 pages of Telegram messages, they openly, not just once, there were 2,900 pages. I love Hitler. I'm going to send him to the gas chamber. Anti-Semitic jokes, racist jokes, every single flavor of N-word they could use, they used. But they also just casually supported the term 1488. Now, there's only two people who know what 1488 means: neo-Nazis, white supremacists, racists, and people like me and Heidi who are masochists and follow these people. And that wasn't bigger news. And I've been trying to I'm like, yo, they're using 1488. Heidi, can you tell them what 1488 is?
Yeah, it's sad that we have to educate the public on something that's so horribly extreme. Well, let's start with 88. 8 stands for the eighth letter of the alphabet, which is H. So 88 is a stand-in for Heil Hitler. 14 is a shorthand for something called the 14 words, which is a white supremacist slogan that I get wrong every time I want to repeat it, but it's something along the lines of, we are for white children and white families. It's just a flat, and it was, let's not forget, the 14 words was coined by a terrorist who was involved in the murder of Alan Berg, a radio host in Denver, Colorado, and spent most of his life in prison. He was a member of something called the Order. So 1488 means I am a Hitler-loving white supremacist. That's what that's code for. And the fact that these young Republicans, well, not so young, but youngish Republicans knew what 1488 is, how are they getting their hands on this messaging? I mean, you got to ask yourself that question.
Exactly. Like even that, like who would just it's not just one of those things where, oh, I just heard it on the radio. Like you have to dig deep to know what 1488 is, then use it appropriately in context along with all the other racist messages, right? And this is where, going back to a point you made, I don't even think the elders of the GOP, or now magnified GOP, realize how radicalized their youth has become. Like the fact that they're in a post-Groyper movement. Like I don't think they realize, and this is not just the GOP, but I think it's the rest of us. I don't think most normies realize where the young leaders of the Republican Party are, Heidi. And what's your research show?
Well, they're extremely radical. Let's look at Charlie Kirk, right? Which the Trump administration wants us not to look at. But that guy was peddling racism, anti-LGBTQ, anti-trans, like every form of this. He's not going to say 1488 in public, but we know now that these kinds of people are saying it in private. Then you got the Groypers, you mentioned them, Nick Fuentes' young crew. Nick Fuentes is a Holocaust denier, an anti-Semite, everything you can imagine. And he's becoming increasingly mainstreamed on the right now. He's like trying to fill the shoes of Charlie Kirk. I think you're right. They don't know how radical these young people are. They don't understand that they've been radicalized online into these extremist movements. I mean, how did you find 1488? Well, I'll tell you how, on Telegram, right? They're on these extremist links. They're having chats in places where we're not catching them, because they're being indoctrinated. It's like the entire internet has put a target on white young men's backs to radicalize them, and they're susceptible to it. And that's the GOP party of the future. It's bad right now with Trump, but it's going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, and they get really upset at us. Why are you calling us Nazis? And I'm like, stop acting like Nazis. Like, why do you call Donald Trump Hitler? I'm like, I didn't call him a Hitler. J.D. Vance did. And then he made him his vice president, and RFK did, and he made him his director of HHS. Maybe he takes it as a compliment. Maybe Donald Trump should stop quoting Hitler. Maybe he should stop promoting Nazi conspiracy theories. And then, folks, I mean, what's so infuriating, and again, I'm sorry that this is like, I just feel like I'm used to it now, but there's an inner part of me that's banging his head against the wall. I won't do it publicly because I'm calm and chill and I know how America operates, but it's like literally DHS last week, the Twitter account of DHS posted the word remigrate, and no one says anything. That's all they did. Heidi, I know you saw it. I know I saw it. And then I went on Don Lemon's show. I'm like, did you see remigrate? He goes, what's that? And then he brought it, and I said, tell your producer to bring it up right now. And then we talked about it, and Don was like, his mouth was like agape. Like, folks, again, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, their official Twitter account last week, go check it out right now, posted remigrate. I know you mentioned it, but we have 1,000 people watching. Just tell people. Tell people, when you saw that, Heidi, what did you think?
I mean, horrified and yet not surprised, right? Given what DHS has been posting in recent months. Look, remigration is ethnic cleansing of immigrants from countries. It is a concept that comes from this guy, Martin Sellner, former neo-Nazi white nationalist, leader of the largest white nationalist, transnationalist group, Generation Identity. It is his idea. He was probably over the moon when DHS posted that stuff last week. He's been trying to get parties, right-wing parties in Europe to buy into this. And it's forcible you can't call it anything but ethnic cleansing. It's a war crime, what he's proposing. That's what DHS just posted. And the Department of State has proposed creating an Office of Remigration. And of course, this all goes hand in hand with only allowing white South African refugees, right? I mean, what's that about?
You got me. I was there to set it up, and you went there. I mean, another huge scandal that, of course, no one talks about because there's 47 burning fires. If you think me and Heidi are suffering from TDS, if you think we're being hyperbolic, oh no, they're revealing the supervillain plot. 3 days ago, tell them what. Just expand on that, Heidi, for people who don't know.
On the refugee issue you're talking
Yes.
about. Yeah, they've reformed the office. So they've cut off refugee status for basically everybody in the world except for white people. They're now directing the Office of Refugee Resettlement, or whatever it's called, to look. This is the kind of people we're going to allow in. So not people running from war zones, from gangs, from crime, for fear of their lives. No, let's import some good white people into the United States. I mean, that's what it means. And this goes hand in hand with things like the Camp of the Saints, right? No people of color as refugees. They're rapists and murderers and killers. We want to build up the ranks of white people in the U.S. It couldn't be more blatant. It's right out of the white supremacist playbook. And let me just say this stuff about South Africans, some white South Africans suffering from huge levels of crime, so they have to come to the U.S. It is all a white supremacist, bogus conspiracy theory. There is no evidence that this is happening.
Yeah, it's white genocide. It was specifically a neo-Nazi conspiracy that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller promoted. And during the visit of South African president a couple of months ago, you could tell him he's smiling and trolling at Donald Trump because Donald Trump literally, folks, while the cameras were on, was promoting this bullshit. And the South African president was just literally saying, nope, that's not right. That's wrong. And that was an excuse to bring in white South Afrikaners. But then Donald Trump has said, why can't people come? Why do these people come from shithole countries? This has been the plan all along. So if you're a white refugee who probably doesn't even meet the requirement of being a refugee because you're not persecuted, you can come. Everyone else, F you. And not only that, even if you're here legally, folks, what are they trying to do right now? Donald Trump, 2 weeks ago, has asked the Supreme Court to end birthright citizenship. So they want to end birthright citizenship. They want to revoke the citizenships of people who have become citizens. I mean, look, speaking about the Islamophobia, my friend Mehdi Hassan the last 2 days, I mean, the type of racist shit that, mainstream Republicans have said to him, right? Send you back to UK, send you back. We're going to strip you. What do they say for the people who are naturalized? We're going to denaturalize you. That's another mainstream point now. Denaturalizing. That's what they want to do as well. So if you were an immigrant and you came here and went through the legal process and became a citizen, now they want to denaturalize you. I mean, Heidi, what more do we need to see? What is the end game for people? Because what's common to you and me isn't common to everyone else. And so I'm looking at the comments of people like, I had no idea what 1488 meant. Oh my God. I'm glad you didn't, folks. You trust me, you're in a good, you're doing life right. Don't be a masochist like me and Heidi. But the end game, what's the end game?
Well, I think if Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, some of these people really had their way, if they could pull it off, it would be an all-white country with a very small immigrant population. It would be going back to what they call the natural family, right? So no same-sex marriage, no LGBTQ rights, all that stuff would be in the trash. Women would be back in the home. There would be no access to contraception. They'd want to get white birth rates up. That would be their goal. Partner that with your white refugees. I mean, they want to reestablish white supremacy. I don't know how it could be any more clear. That's what this is about. Think about the entire federal government just obliterating every reference to LGBTQ people, shutting down health research, all these things. What is that about? Well, that's the Christian nationalist end of these things. The immigration, the war on immigrants, that's the straight up white nationalism. And these two factions, white nationalists, racists, neo Nazis, etc., aligned with Christian nationalists, want to take us back to some imagined 1950s Ozzie and Harriet reality. It doesn't exist, but that's what's in their minds. And if they got to forcibly, if they could, if they had the power to forcibly remove thousands and thousands of non white immigrants, I think these people would go for it.
I think they will. I think they will. Stephen Miller, folks, I'm telling you, died in the wool, white nationalist, a soldier, a man who lives and breathes this stuff. People who know him says that he sleeps it, he wakes up. This is what he does. And Heidi mentioned something, another piece of news, because there's been so much Nazi stuff in the last 2 weeks that it's even overwhelming for me just trying to keep up. Another story that I even mentioned is that in the representative, the Republicans, I'm forgetting his name. I don't give a shit about his name. The Republican, when they were doing a Zoom call and they found out that on the back, one of his young interns has a U.S. flag with the swastika, as is totally normal, right? But another story, and I think it's very important for those who don't know, because you're normies, is when it comes to the birth rate, they have been obsessed with the birth rate. I did my TED talk on this because I wanted to do a different angle and spin on it. The birth rate is falling in China. The birth rate is falling in Japan. The birth rate is falling in the EU, and the birth rate is falling in the United States of America. This will have profound impacts, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. However, there are different solutions to this. So the one that I did was I used it as a Trojan horse to promote progressive pronatal reforms, like, I don't know, paid parental leave, or, affordable healthcare, or bringing women into the workforce, or, helping people who are a bit older still have their jobs. Not Elon Musk and RFK and others. They are really obsessed with pronatalism because they want more white babies. And they are really, really angry that we, brown and black people in the EU and America, are the only ones keeping the birth rate from falling down even further, right? Literally, it's like, if it wasn't us, the birth rate would be down to like 1.3 or 1.2 instead of where it should be as 2.1. 2.1. So last week, folks, RFK and Heidi, because I know these people, before I even read it, I said it. Trump administration is going to make, pro-fertility. We're going to make fertility drugs more affordable and make easier for IVF. And people are like, oh, that's really good. That's great. And before reading the article, I saw it. And I remember I said, more white babies, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And people are like, come on, Waj, no, this is a good thing. And then RFK comes on and does this conference from the White House, and he essentially says exactly that. Talk to us about this. It's not all babies, folks. I want to be very clear. More white babies. They want more white babies. The whole pronatal aspect of white supremacy. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, well, there have been these natalism conferences. I think they've been held in Texas mostly. And you got a mix of white supremacists, people like Jared Taylor and others, people in the kind of Elon Musk mode, and they're all there to talk about how we got to get the birth rate up. But the fact that there's white supremacists tells you everything about whose babies they're talking about, right? They want more white babies. Elon Musk wants, I guess he just personally wants as many babies as he can get, right? They think that, white babies are superior to black and brown babies, that this country will be ruined if the white birth rate falls lower. And as you say, we have lots of Latino, Muslim, other kinds of kids. I mean, at this point, under 18, I think there's more than 50% of children are non-white. And that for them is a crisis, right? They got to do everything they can to stop it. And, it just makes me think of like eugenicists back in the 1920s and the 1910s, Hitler with his giving awards to women who had more than, 5 children, Aryan children. It's that kind of thinking that's going on with this natalism.
And folks, it's all like, again, we're trying to bring the evidence. It's a white supremacist project. And the corporate media will never call it that. Democrats will never call it that. The establishment will never call it that, because then it will force this country to actually confront white supremacy, which is its enduring sin. And I've said, Heidi, before, that the two enduring sins of this country are white supremacy and greed, racism and capitalism, essentially, unfettered capitalism. And until you confront it and dismantle it, we're going to just see a reboot, a reboot, a reboot. And now the death rattle of white supremacy has turned into a death march, both here and in Europe. Can you connect? Because people just think it's America, and it's not. This is a global a movement. This is a type of a global network that is committed to hate and a violent extremism project. I say a violent extremism project. It is a global violent extremist movement. Is that me being hyperbolic, Heidi?
No, no, absolutely not. Look, Trump and his cronies are deeply connected to other authoritarian governments, like in Hungary with Viktor Orban, or to far right political parties that are on the rise in multiple countries at the same time. They're fueled mostly by xenophobia, right? Hatred of non white immigrants. This is a completely networked thing. CPAC, the right wing conservative conference, is now in like something like 12 or 13 countries. All those people work together. In fact, there was an interesting podcast or radio interview with Viktor Orban a couple days ago where he talked about how we are so connected, all of us leaders, and he actually claimed basically to have injected himself into the American election. But his point was, we're all on the same page, we're all interconnected, and we're growing, and we have an agenda. And it's a push for white Christian nationalism, racism, etc. Hungary is terribly, terribly racist against immigrants. So this isn't just the United States. Now, I think Trump has moved to the authoritarian direction quicker than in any other place, right? It's just been like a sprint lately. But they're coming for every single country in the world if they can.
Yeah, and it's they're playing for all the marbles, is what I've said, Heidi. And I don't know, there's obviously, you and me will do whatever we can with whatever life we have left to raise the alarm and fight back. But I think it's so ingrained within some of these countries and these societies, including the United States of America. The analogy I've always given is, if they had a choice between sharing a giant mansion with someone like me or burning down the house, they would choose to burn down the village. And I see that in America. And you see the image of the White House literally being destroyed. And I'm like, just perfect. Like, just, what more do you need? It's white supremacy in a nutshell. In order to become great again, they will destroy themselves and everyone else.
Look, you're right about the racism and the greed. There's no question. We should also remember that the United States is, we haven't been a democracy that long. We can't really claim to have been a democracy any further back than the 1960s, right? The Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and how imperfect that is. So we shouldn't be surprised that this stuff keeps resurging and resurging and resurging. It's at the bedrock of American history. And I think you're right. There's a lot of people out there, they're in the MAGA movement, they're Trump supporters, who just cannot accept a multiracial democracy. They can't accept it. They don't want it. And that's what's fueling all of this, right? I think anti-immigrant sentiment is probably the most powerful of it. That's what's fueling these moves. And Trump knew that. He was able to tap into that from the first day he came down that escalator in 2015. It's like he knew what to go after and completely transformed the Republican Party into a racist entity.
And, I think the one hope, people are like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We'll get there in this conversation. We'll get there. But the one thing that we could do, and the one thing that you said Trump and Rupert Murdoch and basically powerful men have always done, is like, oh shit, if they realize that we're the supervillains, if we're the ones gobbling up all their milkshakes, they're going to turn on us and they're going to kill us. So to avoid a Bastille Day, let's have them fight each other. Let's have the black fight the white. Let's have the white fight the Latino. Let's have the good Latino fight the bad Latino. Let's have the good Asian fight the bad Asian. Let's have the suburban Muslim go after the Latino. Let's have them fight each other, and let's do culture wars, and let's just keep drinking their milkshake. Which is why now that I think the bro-oligarchy message, or specifically fighting the oligarchy, is so powerful. Because what we've seen, Heidi, is whether it was Bernie or AOC. Let's look at Mamdani. I think Mamdani is such a beautiful test case of how this is not just the right wing. How friggin' yesterday, folks, Andrew Cuomo posted such an insanely racist AI video that once I read about it, I'm like, no. And then I saw it, I'm like, oh, it races against Muslims, races against black people. He posted it and then he deleted it. Zoran Mamdani, brown man, immigrant, bearded, like me, Muslim, says, I want to make New York City affordable. I want to go against the billionaires, and I'm not going to throw immigrants under the bus. And it's so threatening that the Democratic establishment is joining with the right wing and AIPAC to just destroy him. And folks, you know they're desperate because the Islamophobia, the anti-Muslim bigotry of the past week from the right wing and Cuomo is off the charts. It's like 2003 levels bad. So in order to stop this message, they're going all in on racism. And I think it's driving them crazy that the Islamophobia that worked like gangbusters in 2003 is not working in 2025.
Fingers crossed it stays that way. Yeah, Mamdani is a super interesting case study of this. And the Democrats have been completely weak. I mean, this isn't going to help them in the fight with white supremacy if they side with people like Cuomo. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are they going to refine their message if they can't stop this stuff? And the fact of the matter is the country is going to get more diverse. It is, regardless of Miller's fantasies and Trump's fantasies. So why not just stand on the side of equality and civil rights? I don't get it. The Islamophobia, I really thought we'd kind of put that to bed, Waj, and apparently not.
Folks, it's so bad. In addition to this AI video, they had I think the right wing is posting this just crazy of plane, and Mamdani's name is on the plane going into 9/11, and just shows you how racialized all this hate is. Mamdani is a U.S. citizen, number one. He's not one of the 19 foreign hijackers brought down the two towers, number two. And those 3 foreign hijackers, 15 of them for Saudi Arabia. Doesn't matter. If you're brown, you're a Muslim, you're a terrorist. That's it. That's what I want people to realize, right? It doesn't matter if you're Palestinian. It doesn't matter if you're Arab. It doesn't matter if you're, even if you look Muslimy, which is why I kept telling people, right? You just have to look Muslimy and you're seen as a terrorist. The first hate crime after 9/11 was against Balbir Sodhi Singh, a Sikh Indian immigrant in Arizona. And we've always said that to people, right? Like, if you think you're the moderate Muslim, the good Muslim, no one gives a shit. If you're secular, if you're Hindu, if you're Sikh, bigots aren't nuanced. They see all of us as threats, folks. And if you're a white person as an ally standing up against white nationalists, Heidi, just looking at the current history and tracing it, if you're a white ally, what do white nationalists see you as?
The devil. I mean, I've had this conversation with Jared Taylor before. You're a race traitor. That's what you are if you stand with communities of color. And sometimes they think that you're worse than actually the black and brown people, that you're the one who's subverting the system to turn it into, you're the one actually stopping the white supremacist resurgence. That's how they see you.
Yeah, and so we're all lumped in together, which is the thing, is that we all have to find a way out. But I do want to get to this real quick, is we're in brave new territories, folks, because this stuff is even funkier than it ain't simple, because it ain't just blue pill and red pill now. We're now into black pill accelerationism. We're into online nihilism. We're into beyond red and blue, straight up violent extremism, edgelord humor, violence for the kick of it. I remember when I asked you about Robin Westman, and folks, that might seem like ages ago. It was late August. Robin Westman, white, I think trans shooter, a mass shooter in Minnesota, who had a hodgepodge of just deranged fantasies, who had a rainbow flag, but also promoted Islamophobic terrorists and hated Muslims and was anti-Semitic. And people are like, what the F? White, trans, rainbow flag, Islamophobe? What's happening? I think Robin Westman, an alleged shooter of United Healthcare CEO Luigi Mangione, and Tyler Robinson, alleged shooter of Charlie Kirk, and also this guy Joshua Johns in Chicago, I think they represent the future where it isn't so clean cut anymore. Can you talk to us about these test cases? And if you just want to use one, go ahead, and what you've been studying for the past month, because you've been trying to unpack this.
Yeah, we did a deep dive into Westman to try to understand what was going on there. In that case, they left manifestos and information, right, that you could go through and look at. And you describe it well. There's a hodgepodge of love of mass killers, both racist and non-racist, misogyny, neo-Nazism. Um, it's like nothing I've ever seen. You know, you think back to the shooter like at the Pittsburgh synagogue or the El Paso Walmart, and you had a very clear ideological position that that person held. They believed that white genocide was happening and the Great Replacement, and they wanted to do something to stop it. This is now like you're looking at someone who's living in the stew of the internet and picking up little pieces of nastiness from all over the place and throwing it all against the wall. And there have been several of these now. The FBI is calling them nihilistic. I don't know if that's the right term for them, but it is something different. And there've been a lot. And when I look at this, I just think about the absolute failures of the tech companies, the gaming companies, et cetera, to protect people from violent material, racist, white supremacist, anti-Semitic. It's everywhere. And especially in gaming, people don't realize this, but they barely have any content moderation on those sites. So you're just bombarded by the worst of the worst, and it's radicalizing young men, young people into like everything. We have these movements now that are like encouraging children to self-harm, pushing neo-Nazism at the same time. It is really some of the worst stuff I've ever seen, Waj. Really disgusting.
Yeah, and I've been playing video games for a while. Once in a while, I play, and I just listen. Sometimes a lot of not just young people, but young men, and it's an open forum for misogyny, racism, homophobia, and that was the old school, forums when we were playing Call of Duty. Now you have Telegram, and you have 4chan, and you have Discord, and you have the infiltration of these spaces with people with actual agendas, right? And it's like type of this neo-Nazi stuff. It's right-wing stuff. It's nihilistic stuff. It's also this type of self-loathing and misogyny. And I think the misogyny angle gets lost, and I think that's a really big angle when it comes to radicalizing young men. Can you talk to us about the loathing of women?
Yeah, the misogyny online, which is mixed up now, like you described it, with all these other hate ideologies, right? It's completely intertwined. Is very deep. Women are there for your sexual pleasure. If they won't serve you, they deserve to be raped. They're second class citizens. I'm thinking back to Nick Fuentes saying, "Your body, my choice." Right, so that's the right of men to exploit women how they want. The descriptions of women online are so gross, I wouldn't repeat them here. And what's interesting about this is this stuff really didn't exist until about 2008 when there was this thing that happened, Gamergate, where female game designers came under vicious misogynistic attack. That was the beginnings of the online hate against women. And I would say you can't be exposed to any extremist ideology without being exposed to that kind of misogyny, which has prompted killings, right? Remember the Toronto van attack? I
Yep.
can't remember what year that was. There was a
Or
killing.
LA, that kid who took the video of himself
Oh,
before he killed those girls, and he
Elliot
said like,
Roger.
yeah,
Yeah. And there was a yoga attack on a yoga studio in Tallahassee. I mean, there've been a bunch of them actually. The incel movement is related here for people who don't know what that is. Those are involuntarily celibate men who basically are pissed off that women won't do what they want sexually, dating, etc. So it's really bad. I'm glad you called attention to this, Watch, because I think misogyny gets left out of these conversations a lot, and yet it is deeply fundamental. I also think the attraction to white supremacy by so many young men is related to this misogyny in the sense that it makes them feel empowered, strong,
yeah.
right,
There you go.
dominating.
I think that's so key. And just folks, people are like, Waj, how are you into this? So 15 years ago, I'm not into this, but I mean by following it. 15 years ago, for the Center for American Progress, I did this report called Fear Incorporated, The Roots of the Islamophobia Network in America. And that was leading up to I think it was 2012 midterm elections and also the 2014 elections. And it was originally it's supposed to be a 30-page report. And, I was a playwright at that time. I wrote a play, I was writing articles, and they're like, oh, we want to think outside the box and we'll bring you on because we know you're connected to these Muslim communities and you write about hate and you know about culture. So maybe, you could put this in a narrative format. And we're just really curious where all these weird memes are coming from and these conspiracy theories that Obama is a Muslim and the Muslim Brotherhood has taken over and this Islamophobia. So just like chart it out for us, right? 25, 30 pages. So as you know, Heidi, that ended up being a 138-page report. And I recall at that time, I had to cut. It was like my original draft was like 160 pages. And I actually had these transatlantic connections. And they cut those transatlantic connections, wisely so, because they said it'd be too much, just focus it on America. But for the past, gosh, Heidi, it's been like almost 14 years. I've been trying to just I'm like, this is real. This is getting mainstream. It's international. It's just right there at the cusp of the Republican Party. It's in Europe. They're not going away. As the country gets more and more brown, more Muslim, more diverse, they're going to get more and more active. And it's not just Muslims. They also hate women. They hate immigrants. They hate black people. They hate gays. They hate Jews. I think I've been saying for 14 years, love has gone intersectional. So has hate. And these people are playing for all the marbles and people are like, Obama won, whatever. Anyway, we're done with you. And so here we are, folks, this inability to confront it. And speaking about the power, I think that's key here is that especially young men, I want to ask you this. Young people, if you look at all the data, folks, it's really depressing. Young people in America don't have faith in the economy. Young people in America don't have faith in the future. Young people in America think things are worse off than they were for their parents' generation. Young people in America, life expectancy has gone down. We've lost 3 years in America. Now we don't have the social safety net. These people have only known cruelty and nihilism and COVID and Trump. And so if you can go to college, and you're a man, and your manhood is based upon these patriarchal but very powerful notions of protector, right, provider. A man has a job. A man is desirable that way. You don't have a job. You don't have money. You don't have opportunities. You don't have education. Women are going to colleges more than men. Women are making more money. Women are like, you're a scrub. Women are like, I'll just be, hang out with my girlfriends. And now you have this generation of men who are like, all right, I'll just be online and play video games, I guess, with my friends. That whole population, Heidi, to me, is ripe for radicalization.
That's right. That's exactly right. You've described all the things that are plowing into this. The poverty at that age, the fear, the social safety net being completely gone. I sometimes think that America can be a very cruel place. If you lose your job or you can't get a job, you're on the streets, right? There's nothing holding people up. And young men are bailing on the workforce. They're not even trying, essentially. And this is giving them a purpose, this Nazism, hate, whatnot. It gives them a purpose. They find it empowering. We have sort of left them hanging, and the extremists are taking advantage of that. They can see that this population will be motivated into these things. And, at this point, I don't know how many millions of young men have been radicalized into white supremacy, misogyny, etc. And now it's back on the mainstream sites too. X is filled with this stuff. So we're going to have a problem on our hands for years when it comes to this, a public safety problem, a poverty problem, a violence problem, and it's not being taken seriously.
Yeah, and folks, anyone who wants a magic bullet, like, oh, tech moderation, yes, tech companies are terrible. Gaming, sure. Culture wars, yes. But I think the key thing here is if people feel like they have no purpose, if they feel like they have no community, if they feel like they cannot be valued, they seek those spaces in which they have purpose, they have a rank, they can elevate themselves, and they have meaning. And if you look at violent extremists, whether it's Al-Qaeda or it's KKK or Nazis, the DNA of these people, Heidi, you know this, you've been studying this your whole life, is very similar. The DNA, if you take away the outer garments, The DNA is like a very simplistic story. Good versus evil. You're good against evil. You have to be a martyr, a fighter, a crusader, a knight, a jihadist to save your people and civilization. Violence is the only way because violence is necessary. You're the hero willing to do what no one else can to save your people and your culture and the women. The women are underneath the men, but the woman's greatest job is to birth the next knight or the next crusader or the next jihadist, right? There's an order to everything, and your job is to purify the land. And some people, you have to be a martyr, and your martyrdom has to be witnessed through television or through streaming, right? And then you will be remembered, and you will enter the gates of Valhalla, or you will enter paradise and get virgins. What did I miss?
You did a very good job of laying out the mythology. Watch. That's what it is, though. And I might add to you the way you're describing it. It sounds a whole lot like a video game, right? And
Yep.
so it plays into that. God.
It is. You actually, that's a good point. I never thought about that. It's like a video game. You're the hero. You have an end goal. You have to save the universe. You have to kill the bad guys. You have to do some unsavory things, but you're the only one tasked by the universe or God or Kismet to do it. And the more you do it, the more you level up, the more you get experience points, the more you get more powerful, the more people see you and say, wow. Like I see my son playing Roblox and all these other games, and my son's a sweet kid and his friends are sweet. But like he was so sad 2 days ago. He goes, my friend, he took this one, coat or armor that I really wanted. And like, I really wanted that. Right. So you kind of compete with each other to become like the most awesome jacked up warrior. Right. And I think that, it's like the witness, the community aspect of it. Witness me, which is why I think Mad Max Fury Road did a fantastic job. It was like creating this really great universe about seeing these young men who are easily brainwashed by Immortan Joe, and they have no future. So he says, yeah, but your future is that you could be a soldier and die in jihad and join me in Valhalla. If you haven't seen Mad Max, I'm telling you, folks, they did a really good job explaining this. My final question to you, because people are like, well, we're depressed. What's a way out, Heidi?
We only have a few ways out. Protest, right? Voting is important. Telling people around you about this, supporting candidates that you think will be, create a different future. And don't forget that 60% of the American public is not happy with what's going on. We are actually in the majority, not the Trump people. So there is hope. And I'd like to keep that in mind.
I say 7 million people came out to protest. There's economic boycotts. I've been telling people, once I found out, it's not just Spotify, but I found out last week that a whole bunch of these organizations, these tech companies, are proudly promoting ICE ads. And one of them was Spotify, and Spotify's doubled down on it. And I just said, cancel Spotify, man. What we've seen is economic boycotts work. Look at what happened with Target and Costco. Look at what happened. The buy-in at Costco, the buy-out of Target. The CEO has gone of Target because the foot traffic just dropped, especially with people of color, especially as they embrace their anti-DEI messages. And we're like, brown people and black people go there. And we're like, all right, F you. And then we went to Costco. And you also saw with Jimmy Kimmel and ABC, folks, within a week after Disney's Plus, and I got kids, and we canceled that. Apparently, I was one of 1.7 million shareholders. Like, what the F? They brought back Jimmy Kimmel. So I think cancel Spotify, choose one of these companies, go after it. I think all they care about is money at the end of the day. The color green still trumps the color white. But I will say with Democrats, Heidi, I think we need those Democrats who are willing to call it out.
Yeah.
Like we need Democrats to call the shit out. And then not just that, like you tell me what you're going to do to hold these people accountable. Because if you're not calling it out and you're not going to hold any of these people like Stephen Miller accountable, then we're just going to recreate the wheel, aren't we?
No, you're absolutely right. That has to happen. We have to do whatever we can to end this and erase this and finally get this country to a reconstruction that deals with white supremacy head on.
Yeah, we need reformation, not restoration. Folks, for the past 50 minutes or so, I've been talking to Heidi Beirich. Heidi Beirich is a maven when it comes to countering violent extremism and white nationalist groups. She's the co-founder of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. She was formerly at the Southern Poverty Law Center. She knows these people inside and out. She's doing the work that trust me, you don't want to do. Heidi and I were just unpacking the mainstreaming of Nazis and the online radicalization of young men. And for many people who are watching, 1,500 people, I'm glad you are in the comment section. Heidi, they're like, we had no idea. Exactly, folks. Most normies have no idea, but you need to know this stuff because this is the young generation. That 2,900 pages of those Telegram messages between the young leaders, the young Republican leaders, late 20s and 30s, it's all Nazi shit. It's all Nazi shit. And these are the people who are going to run for office, become senators, maybe become presidents. This is where we are, folks. Literally, ICE and DHS are promoting remigrate. That's only a word used in white nationalist circles for ethnic cleansing. They're tweeting this shit out. This is where we are. So we have to wake up. And Heidi, people have to support you. Shamelessly promote yourself, Heidi.
Oh, well, if you're interested in this stuff, go to our website, globalextremism.org. We have a weekly newsletter that covers these issues. You can sign up for there. And we're always appreciative of donations if you like our work.
Heidi's terrible at self-promotion. That was pretty pathetic. But it's Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. And once I do a write-up, I'm going to link to it and get Heidi on. You know, what's so interesting, Heidi, is how come corporate media doesn't invite you on more? Like you'd think.
I feel like corporate media is avoiding people who do the kind of anti-hate stuff. I just don't see much of it anymore, unfortunately.
I don't either. Can I tell you right before I let you go? I had to speak. You know, my speaking agency is great. This is the year where I have had the least amount of speaking requests for universities and corporations. And my speaking agency is awesome. This is what they said, folks. To appease Trump and to show you where we are right now, if you are a person of color or a woman, universities and corporations are avoiding booking you because regardless of the content of your speech, they see you as DEI and they don't want to be associated with being pro-DEI.
Cowards.
Yeah, this is where we are, folks. And so you would think maybe have a Heidi on to connect the dots in 5 minutes and talk about, you know, what is 1488 and remigrate. Nope. So this is why I got to do the hard work. I'm a one-man shop. It's the left hook. I'm a terrible capitalist, Heidi. I put everything for free. I want to keep people informed. But if you have a few bucks, give it to Heidi and her organization, Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. If you have a few dollars left over, I have like 800 kids. Let me feed one of them. It's the left hook. I've been talking to Heidi Beirich for the past 50 minutes. This conversation will be up later today on my Substack. Please go back and watch it and share it. People, be informed, be kind, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Thanks, Heidi, for taking time.
Take care, Wise.